What happens when one of country music's most beloved voices goes head-to-head with one of morning television's sharpest interviewers? The answer is a moment so intense that even the production crew didn't know whether to keep filming or cut to commercial. Faith Hill, the queen of 90s country and a household name for over 2 decades, found herself in an unexpected on-air confrontation with Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show, an exchange that would quickly spiral from friendly conversation to full-blown tension, leaving viewers stunned and Faith walking off the set. It started like any other morning on Today. The studio was alive with chatter, producers giving last-minute notes, and the audience buzzing in anticipation. Faith Hill was scheduled to appear, promoting her new music and celebrating a milestone in her career. For longtime fans, it was supposed to be a heartwarming moment, a legendary artist reflecting on her journey. Savannah Guthrie, always composed and professional, was set to lead the interview. Everything was ready for what should have been an easy, feel-good segment. As the cameras went live, Faith walked in with her trademark smile, waving to the audience as applause filled the studio. Savannah greeted her warmly, complimenting her on her incredible career and asking about her latest project. The energy was light, natural, and filled with the kind of charm Faith had built her career on. The first few questions flowed smoothly about songwriting, family life, and staying creative over the years. Faith was gracious, thoughtful, and poised, the kind of guest every talk show host dreams of. But as the conversation moved forward, the tone began to shift. Savannah, known for balancing warmth with journalistic edge, began steering toward deeper questions. She asked about the changes in the music industry and how artists like Faith had adapted to the streaming era. Faith answered with calm authority, discussing the challenges of staying authentic while navigating an ever-evolving business. Then Savannah asked the question that would change the course of the interview. "There's been some discussion lately," she said, "about how country music has evolved and whether the songs from your era still hold the same power with audiences today. Some critics have even said that the storytelling in modern country surpasses what we heard in the 90s. How do you respond to that?" The smile on Faith's face softened, but her eyes told a different story. She took a moment before answering. "Well, Savannah," she said, "I'd have to respectfully disagree. The music we made in the 90s wasn't just about fitting into a trend. It was about telling real stories, songs that came from real emotions. I think those songs still connect deeply with people today. Just ask the fans." Savannah nodded but pressed further. "Of course," she said, "no one's denying your legacy, but some people do feel that certain themes from that time, especially in older country music, don't translate the same way today. Do you think there's any truth to that criticism?" Faith's posture shifted. She still spoke calmly, but there was now a noticeable edge to her voice. "Music is subjective, Savannah. What feels dated to one person might feel timeless to another. But I do wonder, are these your questions? Or are you reading something someone else wrote for you?" That question landed hard. The audience grew quiet. Savannah gave a small, nervous laugh and said, "These are just questions based on current discussions and articles. I'm giving you a chance to respond to what's being said." Faith leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. "All right," she said, "but let's be honest. This doesn't feel like a chance to respond. It feels like a setup. I came here to talk about my music and my career, not to defend myself against vague criticisms from unnamed people who, frankly, might not even listen to my songs." Savannah kept her composure, though her smile tightened. "Faith, I'm not trying to create anything controversial here. I'm just doing my job, asking the questions people are curious about. If you'd rather move on, we can." Faith shook her head. "That's not the point. I'm fine answering tough questions. What I'm not fine with is the way you're framing them. Like my work needs to be justified or defended. My music has connected with millions. It stands on its own." Savannah replied, "No one's questioning your success. But part of being in the public eye is being open to critique. Surely you understand that." Faith's tone sharpened. "Of course I understand that. I've dealt with critics my entire career. But there's a difference between critique and condescension. And what you're doing right now feels disrespectful." The tension in the room thickened. The audience was silent, the crew frozen behind the cameras. Savannah took a breath, maintaining her calm. "I'm sorry if it came across that way," she said. "That wasn't my intention. I'm simply having a conversation." Faith interrupted. "No, you're not having a conversation. You're pushing a narrative. And what's worse is that you're hiding behind the idea of just doing your job. If you think my music is dated, just say it." Savannah blinked, caught off guard. "I never said that," she replied, her voice steady but strained. "I have enormous respect for you. I think you're misunderstanding the intent." Faith stood up, removing her microphone. "No, I understand perfectly," she said. "I've done enough interviews to know when someone's trying to tear me down under the guise of journalism. I don't need to sit here and play along." Savannah rose from her seat, too, visibly tense but trying to de-escalate. "Faith, please, let's take a moment. I'm not trying to insult you. Let's just continue." Faith shook her head. "No, I think we're done here. I came here to share my music, not to be made to feel small on live television." Savannah's patience began to fray. "Faith, I think you're overreacting. This was never meant to be hostile." That word, overreacting, landed like gasoline on fire. Faith stopped mid-step and turned back toward Savannah. Her voice was calm but icy. "Overreacting? You just questioned the validity of my entire career, and now you're calling me emotional? That's the oldest trick in the book." Savannah raised her hand slightly. "I didn't question your career. I referenced ongoing discussions about country music. That's my job. If you can't handle that level of scrutiny, maybe—" Faith cut her off. "Don't you dare tell me what I can handle. I've been doing this longer than you've been on television. I've faced critics, executives, and every kind of pressure imaginable. What I won't face is disrespect disguised as journalism." Savannah's tone hardened. "That's completely unfair. I treat every guest with respect. I don't use anyone for ratings." Faith gave a cold laugh. "Integrity, huh? You've spent this entire interview implying my music doesn't matter anymore. You may not have said it directly, but you made sure everyone watching heard it between the lines." Savannah snapped back. "Maybe the problem isn't with my questions, Faith. Maybe the problem is that you don't like being challenged." Faith's expression sharpened. "Challenged? Savannah, I've faced real challenges. Being patronized on live TV isn't one of them. And let's be clear, there's a difference between being challenged and being baited." Savannah crossed her arms. "Then why not finish the interview? Why walk off if you've got nothing to hide?" Faith's voice rose slightly. "Because walking away from disrespect isn't weakness. It's self-respect. A professional journalist would ask meaningful questions, not sensational ones," Savannah replied quickly. "And a professional guest would handle tough questions without turning them into personal attacks. These are valid points about your music's relevance." Faith's eyes narrowed. "You keep saying that word, valid, but you can't even name one critic you're referencing. Who said my music is outdated? Who started this supposed discussion? You and your producers made it up to stir drama, didn't you?" Savannah hesitated just a second too long, and Faith caught it. "That's what I thought," Faith said sharply. "You can't back it up because it's not real. It's a headline you manufactured." Savannah's voice turned defensive. "That's not true. There have been articles and online conversations about country music evolving. Your name came up. I'm giving you a platform to respond." Faith stepped forward slightly. "A platform? No, Savannah. A platform is when you give someone a chance to celebrate their art, not when you lure them in and ambush them for ratings. You dressed this up as a tribute, but it was a setup." Savannah's frustration finally cracked. "Every major artist gets asked these questions. Beyoncé? Taylor Swift? Why should you be any different?" Faith's tone was soft but cutting. "Because they're asked about growth, not whether their work still matters. You didn't ask how I've evolved. You asked if my music is outdated. That's not curiosity, that's judgment." Savannah took a step closer, her voice rising slightly. "I'm doing my job. This is real journalism. Not everyone's going to praise you, Faith." Faith looked directly into the camera, then back at Savannah. "You call this journalism? No, this is performance. You pretend to be warm and friendly, but the moment you see an opportunity for drama, you twist the knife. And when the guest reacts, you play innocent." Savannah's face flushed. "That's not who I am. I ask the tough questions because that's what the audience deserves. If you can't handle that, maybe this isn't the right platform for you." Faith smiled tightly. Finally, some honesty. You know what? I respect that more than the fake niceness. At least now you're showing people who you really are. Savannah's voice sharpened. You're blowing this out of proportion. This was supposed to be a thoughtful discussion, not a meltdown. Faith tilted her head. A meltdown? You call this a meltdown? No, Savannah. This is me refusing to let you manipulate a narrative at my expense. You don't get to call me emotional because I'm standing up for myself. Savannah's tone turned cold. I'm being direct, Faith. There's a difference. Faith's expression hardened. Direct would have been telling me beforehand that this was going to be combative. Instead, you smiled, acted friendly, and blindsided me. That's not direct, that's deceitful. Savannah shook her head. I don't warn guests that I'm going to ask real questions. This isn't a puff piece show. Faith replied, real journalism also means fairness and accuracy. You've been neither. You took vague online chatter and turned it into an interrogation. You're not searching for truth, you're searching for drama. Savannah's composure slipped further. You came in defense of Faith, you've been looking for reasons to be offended. Faith's voice rose, echoing through the studio. I came here to celebrate my music, Savannah. You're the one who turned it into an attack. And now you're trying to gaslight me into thinking I'm the problem. The word hung heavy in the air. Savannah's eyes flashed. Don't you dare accuse me of gaslighting. I've done nothing but ask fair questions. If you can't handle them, that's on you. Faith stepped closer, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut through the silence. I can handle any question, Savannah. What I won't handle is manipulation. You've twisted this conversation from the start, and you know it. Savannah fired back. Not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes criticism is just criticism. Faith nodded slowly. You're right. And sometimes disrespect is just disrespect. You've spent this entire interview diminishing everything. I've done, and you can't even see it. Savannah's voice turned cold again. I've never diminished your success. Faith counted off on her fingers. You questioned whether my music holds up. You called it dated. You compared me unfavorably to modern artists. That's diminishing, Savannah. You just did it with a smile. Savannah shot back. Those are fair points being discussed in the industry. Maybe you're defensive because you know there's some truth there. The air in the studio froze. Faith stared at her for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. There it is, she said. The real reason behind all this. You think that because country music has changed, the artists who built it no longer matter. You think relevance is measured by algorithms and trends. But real music, the kind that touches souls, never goes out of style. And that's something you'll never understand from behind that desk. Faith picked up her purse, clipped off her mic, and looked straight into the camera one last time. To everyone watching, she said, don't ever let anyone make you feel like your best work is behind you. Some people will try to diminish you because they can't create what you've built. Remember who you are. With that, she turned and walked off the set as the studio erupted into stunned silence. Savannah stood frozen for a moment before turning to the camera with a strained smile. Well, she said softly, we'll be right back after this. It was supposed to be just another morning show interview. Instead, it became one of the most unforgettable live moments in television. History, a clash of pride, professionalism, and passion that no one saw coming.